Voices from the Mausoleum is brought to you by the You Run Podcast Network and yourunpodcast.com.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Voices from the Mausoleum, and welcome to another episode of Horror Games in Real Life with my co-host, Cavalor.
Hi, welcome back.
The first episode did super well.
Yeah. Thank you guys for liking all the ghost nonsense.
Look, I'm festive today. I wore
my
ghost cunning shirt and my ghost earrings.
Little ghosts.
Never get to wear the ghost stuff that often. Yeah, so we're back again talking about some crazy stuff that Kat has done in real life. And this one I at least knew about. But I think this one's been made kind of like popular, right? Because it's like there's a movie and there's some, there's different things. But the one we're going to talk about today,
Yeah, this one's a little bit timelier because we did just, I think we just had the American release of the movie.
Yeah.
I feel like it came out last year.
It did, the end of last year.
Yeah.
It was one of my first watches in
October. Recently, I feel like, and
Yeah. So the one we're talking today is the Elevator Game.
Yeah, excited to talk about the Elevator Game. Because it is timely. There's been a resurgence of people talking about the Elevator Game. So, and I think this was actually the conversation that we were having when we decided to do this series. I think we were talking about the Elevator Game.
Yeah. It's one of like 3 that I've ever even heard of or know anything about. Yeah. You want to talk through like the lore and what you're supposed to do?
Yeah. So I pulled up a cheat sheet because it has been a while since I played this one.
Yeah, no worries.
And this was another one too where trying to figure out how far even to go back. I played the Elevator Game for the first time. I feel like it was like a year or so before the Elisa Lam thing, when everyone was online saying, "Hey, don't play the Elevator Game." I had already done it at that point.
Of course.
I tried one, of course, yeah. And I was like, it doesn't work, it's fine. But I did try to play it one other time after that, to frustrating results. I never had a lot happen with this one. It's one of the reasons why, even though it's very timely, we wanted to get to it early also because in escalating situations. But by the time, in between the time that I played it for the first time and it went viral, because of Elisa Lam, the rules had changed. So,
okay.
Which is why I tried to play it again. I gave up the second time, so I can't. But the rules, they're very similar. It's just a different sequence of floors.
Okay.
Because when I played, it had to be 13 floors, and now I believe the very common one is 10. That was the one that I found today. But essentially, you go in. The rules that I have here, the How to Summon a Ghost for Idiots site. It says that you have to have at least 10 floors and in a building and an elevator that will reach all of those 10 floors. You go to the elevator, you call the elevator, you are only allowed to use the up button to do so. You are not allowed to touch the down button if there is one present. When the doors open, you enter the elevator. You must enter it on the first floor, and you must enter it alone. You cannot proceed if anyone else is in the elevator with you. This is something that I remembered because you also have to quit playing the game if anyone else enters the elevator at any floor, which is going to come back up later and why I get so frustrated trying to play the Elevator Game.
I can see that already. Yeah.
I have a lot of grievances with that particular rule, but You press the button for the 4th floor. When the elevator reaches the 4th floor, do not get out. Instead, you remain in the elevator and press the button for the 2nd floor. When you reach the 2nd floor, do not get out. Remain in the elevator. Press the button for the 6th floor. At 6, you press the button for 2. At 2, you press the button for 10. When you reach the 10th floor, do not get out. You press the button for 5. When you reach the 5th floor, a young woman is supposed to enter the elevator. You are not supposed to look at her or talk to her because this is the ghost essentially getting in the elevator with you. You press the button for 1. At this point, one of 2 things is supposed to occur. The elevator will begin descending to the 1st floor, or it will begin ascending to the 10th floor. If the elevator descends, the ritual has failed. Do not proceed. Do not look at the girl. Don't look back. You leave the building and you don't come back into the building that night. You can try again on a different day, but it has to be like 24 hours later. If the elevator ascends, the ritual has succeeded and you can continue forward. Now, essentially, what you're supposed to do, if you proceed, there is, you can back out if you want. This is like your last chance to leave, where you can press the button for any floor, get out on any other floor that isn't 10, leave, and it terminates the ritual. Or you can remain on board. And essentially, when you finish, when the woman exits the floor, you go back, I think, to 5. Oh, I have the cheat sheet. And if she exits the floor, you can follow her wherever she's going, and it takes you to like a ghost dimension, essentially.
Yeah.
Is how this is supposed to work. So those are the rules to the elevator game. It is way harder to reach floor 10 just so. And this is a regional situation, because and I had this talk with a friend who was like really tired of me playing these ghost games. My best friend Alan has he very often was a guinea pig in these games with me. And so he went to college in New York. And in New York, you can go into any building you want, and it's gonna have an elevator that goes at least 10 floors up.
Sure.
I lived in Ohio, I think, the first time I started playing this, and then like when it went viral, I was living in Alabama, and both of those states are not states with a lot of high rises.
Yeah.
It So it was a time trying to find any building with 10 floors and a working elevator that was just going to let me go play this game. Like, it was a pain in the ass. I actually stayed in a hotel for a little while, like in between moves, that had like 9 floors, and I remember being like really pissed off. Because it's like, God damn it, I'm gonna be in this
Yeah, of course.
hotel anyway. But like, this is another one that logistically is just hard. When I went to visit my friend in New York, because he knew that I was having this problem trying to play this game, and he was very acquainted with my ghost game nonsense at this point. So when I went to visit him, like pretty much every time I went to visit him while he was in school, like he'd have a break and I'd drive out there or bus out there sometimes, because I fucking hate driving in New York. But I was
Fair.
like,
Fair.
it was just better not to have my car with me so that no one expected me to drive anywhere.
Yeah,
But
I
I
get
was like, but I'd go out there and I'd be like, what buildings can we get into? Like, I'd be looking around. I showed up once and he had a list of like, here are 5 buildings that you can try and play the elevator game in. And I would disappear for a little while and like try to play this. It took several times though. Like, and where I was at when I finally successfully did this was Detroit. I was staying in I was staying in a convention center in Detroit for an anime convention, and the logistical issues with this were crazy, because it was a 2 elevator system, and one went up, like, the first half of the floors, and the second went up, like, the second half of the floors.
Oh my god.
Uh,
Yeah.
so, first of all, I kept trying to use the wrong elevator, which was a pain in the ass, and second of all, I was there. I think if I had done this on, like, a normal convention day, I would've just probably given up because
Yeah.
conventions are so busy. I got there on a Thursday because we were driving in from so far away.
Yeah.
And because it was a Thursday, like, I had to wait for everyone to kind of settle down. I was playing this at, like, 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Uh, and it was like I finally was able to follow the correct sequence of, like, going in and out of the elevator.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, like, of course, and I did there was a very creepy moment, because you're playing in a very populated elevator with, like, hundreds of other people in
Sure.
the hotel. There was one moment, like, right around the time that the woman should have entered, my elevator, the elevator went up unexpectedly to the wrong floor, and then when the door opened, there wasn't anybody there, and I was like, "This is it, like, we're in business, it's time," and then, like, nothing ever happened, and the doors closed, and the elevator just, like, hung out there, and I was like, "What?" So I, like, hit the next button, and I got down there, and then there are, like, a bunch of anime cosplayers waiting for me when I get to that floor because 'cause I'm like 'cause I'm an idiot playing this at a busy convention center, and I was like, "Okay, so that didn't that's not it."
Aw.
Like, but I tried really, really hard with the elevator game, and then after the Elisa Lam situation, like, I tried again for a long time, but it's just, like, the logistics of this one, if you don't live in a big city, are a nightmare. I tried really hard to get my friend too. I was like, "You do live in a big city, you don't have to wait for a convention, you could just go do this, like, whenever you want," and he's like, "Why would I wanna do this?" Like, I'm not an idiot.
Well, and I was thinking logistically, like, as far as, like, people getting on, like, you
Yeah,
have to be in a building, like, you had to do it so late or early, guess depending on how you wanna look at it, but, like, you have to be somewhere where nobody's gonna interrupt the game
yeah,
to play it, I guess, correctly,
yeah.
so that makes it even harder. I mean, in the movie, they go to an abandoned building, so there's, like, nobody there, so they don't have to worry about it, but, like, in real life, when you're doing something like that, I mean, you're inevitably going to get it interrupted by somebody at some point.
I also did try to play this in an abandoned building once.
Of course.
The elevator did not work.
Oh.
But I was like, that was another one of those. I got so hyped up because it was and this at this point I was living in Mobile, and downtown Mobile is like a ghost town, a ghost
Yeah.
city. Like, there are a lot of big buildings, there are a lot of taller buildings. You can tell there was, like, a thriving area once, and they're all abandoned, and
Mhm.
everything's for sale. Like, you can rent an office by yourself in one of these high-rise buildings in
Dang.
downtown Mobile, and I was like, I could probably we were down there, I don't even remember what we were doing down there, but I was out there with my ex, and his family, and they went to go do something, and I was like, I I'm gonna be back. I'm just gonna, like, explore a little bit, and of course,
Yeah.
what I did was I pretended to be interested in leasing an office building to myself, so I could have access to an abandoned building elevator, and I was crushed when it didn't work. I was like, "We could have done
Oh.
it," 'cause I think that was, like, it must have been, like, the month of the Elisa Lam thing. Like, it was really close, and I was like, "This is my time." It was, like, front and center in my mind. I was like, "I've
Okay.
gotta play this game."
Yeah.
Um, but no. No, no.
Yeah. So that was how I heard about it initially, was the Elisa Lam thing. So for anybody watching who's not familiar, there was a woman who went missing in a hotel, and the short end of it is they found her in a water tank on top of the building that seemingly nobody could, like, she wouldn't have been able to do this herself because the lid was too heavy to move and then put back, and it was just, there's a lot of really bizarre things, but there's this footage of her getting in and out of the elevator. And so one of the things that made me super uncomfortable, like something was going on that was not like, that was super weird, was there's this one part in particular where she gets off the elevator and it almost looks like she's talking to someone, but you can't see anything because it's just, from inside the elevator. But there's like this part where she's like, I've got goosebumps already because my brain already knows where I'm going, where she's standing like right outside the door, like in and out of the elevator. And she does this weird motion with her hands. And to me, it looks like she's swimming. Like the general like motion that she does is like a swimming motion. And then they found her in the water tank on the roof of the building. And and this is a real story. This is not made up. This is real life. This really happened. And so, and that's what you were saying when that information was released, it brought back up the elevator game into making it this. And then when they did the movie recently, which wasn't horrible, it wasn't as good as I wanted it to be, but it was all right. They didn't even touch on that at all. They left that completely alone and they just focused on the rules basically and a new story. With it, which honestly is probably for the best because I feel for that. He can't decide if he wants to be in here or not. Can you get situated? Hey, he's like chewing on stuff, making noise. Get situated. Jesus. Because we're talking about creepy stuff. So every time I see movement behind me, I'm like, but anyway, so that was how I had heard of it. And then the Ghost Adventure crew went to that hotel and they did a lot of like investigating and whatever there. And that was whatever. But that was how I knew about it, is because of that specific. I would never do anything. You know me, I'm a chicken. I would never do any of these things, but it's still such a creepy concept in general. And it's like just the idea, because I think elevators in general do creepy things on their own sometimes. Like you said, like they'll just randomly go to floors and there'd be nothing there. And you're like, ooh, don't like that. Like, they're creepy. They make weird noises. I'm always holding on for dear life, scared it's going to fall, like the Tower of Terror. It's a lot. And so the elevator game in particular, I feel, is one that's like really spooky in concept. And if I had been you and it just went to a floor on its own, I probably would have pissed myself. Like there's no way. I would have been so fucking scared. I would have been done. Like, well, that concludes
so
this.
Excited.
Like I heard you say this is it.
And that's the thing about ghost games, is that like I can always trick myself into like, oh, this is gonna be it, this is the time. Like, and then when something even a little bit weird happens, it's like, oh, and I get so pumped up. And then
I probably would have done some of that too. Like I don't like, I want to do like abandoned buildings and stuff. Like I think you and I talked about before. And the one time I did a ghost hunt, I was actually kind of surprised at how brave I was to do stuff like on my own and to just, so maybe in the circumstance, I wouldn't be as scared as I feel like I would be, but I don't know.
I do have an elevator story though, that I do think, this was more impactful to me than the elevator game. I'm pretty sure there's a haunted elevator at a different convention center out in Ohio. Oh, and it was actually where I had wanted to play the elevator game, because I heard the title, right? I heard elevator game and I was like, I know where I want to play this, because there's like this creepy ass elevator. But it unfortunately, I read the rules and it was like you have to have, like 10 to 13 floors or whatever, and I was like, oh no, because it's only like a 4-level building that I had wanted to play this in. We went to this convention center and everything about this sounds so fake. There's a convention center, and on the way we had to turn onto a street. This is an actual street in Ohio called Slaughter Hill Road, and it just takes you into the middle of the fucking woods. And I was like, great. This is gonna be a great time. I don't even care what happens from here. We are staying at the Slaughter Hill Road Lodge. Like, I am excited about this. And then there's this we get onto this elevator, and first of all, it's just like, it's like this kind of rustic lodge style center right in the middle of the woods. Makes sense. There's just this really random industrial elevator that's like right next to the stairs anyway, and it's like, 2 flights of stairs. It's not that big a deal, but I was like, I've got to get into this creepy elevator to ride down 2 flights of stairs. It took the elevator, I think, longer to come up to where we were than it would have to just walk down
the stairs.
The little, like, because it was such a like short building, but I was like, I've got to figure out what's going on. It took us to the wrong floor. It took us to like the sub basement or whatever. I'm like, this is crazy. And it opens up, and there is a flickering light hallway with a
Oh
bunch of
no.
children's hands. Like, it was like, I guess it had been, the only thing I can think of is that it must have been like a community center project or something.
Yeah.
But there are like like the colorful construction paper, just like child's hands lining the hallway, and I was like,
You
is
could
this
have been
our room?
recording this.
I've got to. I like walked out. I was like poking around, and my friend's like, "We've got to go. Like, we've got to like check in and put down our stuff." And like, I don't know what you're doing here. And I was like, "This is the creepiest thing I've ever seen in my entire life." Like,
You're just like, let me just see about this hallway.
was so weird. And then like we stay at my poor friend. He also, because he was with me after that too. And after that point, I got like a weird obsession with elevators because it's like these things are kind of creepy. Like,
Yeah.
you just don't know what's gonna be on the other side when these doors open. Like,
Yeah, especially not in some random building or something that you're not familiar with. Yeah.
no.
Mm-mm.
And we did, because when we were doing Artists Alley at conventions, there was another one that we stayed in, and it was like, and again, there are like 5 levels of this building, and there's a button for 6 in the elevator, and I was like, "We've gotta go up there, right? Like, we have to press 6. I've gotta know." And he's like, "No." Like,
Stop
why
it.
on earth would you wanna do this? Uh But it's, I don't know if you read, like, one of the first, stories that I ever did, was called Silence of the Lambs, and it was loosely based off of, like, a true story, which everyone kinda laughs about, but it's like, "No, I've seen some haunted ass elevators." Like, you guys
No, I
don't
know I've
know.
seen it because I've seen the cover and stuff, but I haven't read it yet.
It's very elevator centric. But it was because I was writing it, like, on a convention circuit where we were seeing all these weird elevators.
Sure.
It's like, you know?
Yeah.
Um And I was kind of, I was always kind of hoping that with the elevator game, I was gonna, see something, because just elevators are, like you said, they're already so creepy.
There's definitely something about them that puts you on edge. I think especially when you're like in a building you're not familiar with, especially if you're going in it alone, like there's just things about them that definitely just scream creepy. Yeah.
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 But
Well, I mean, I guess it's good that nothing happened. I mean, you're still here, so
it's always good when I'm still here,
yeah.
but there is always that disappointment, especially with this one, because I thought that one was gonna be a winner.
Yeah, I think it's like it's it was kind of interesting, like because I guess people did it for social media, maybe. Was there people? Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like it kind of yes, you're very cute. Can you stop? What are you doing?
Not.
This is your Ollie bedtime time. What are you doing? Um Stop it. Go lay in the cupboard over there with all the shirts that you're getting hair all over. He's like, I'm about to after I sit on your mouse. Stop it. My God. Anyway, he doesn't normally interrupt me this much. Normally he just comes in and out, but doesn't need attention. Anyway, yeah, no, elevators are super creepy. The concept of the game in general is very creepy. And I think that when you add the fact that there's like a real life story that has been added to this, like, what would you like to say? Would you like to say something? Camera shy? Okay. Our
His
third
little
co-host,
nose.
apparently. I know. You all right? You're never up here like this. You got me a little concerned. You just need attention. Shocking. Anyway, but yeah, when you add the real life element and the people tying it to the elevator game and all of that, it just makes it even more creepy. Like I was really excited about the movie. I didn't think the movie was super great. I thought it was fine. I liked certain parts of it, but it ended up not being like, I don't know, it wasn't as scary as I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be like really scary. And it wasn't very scary to me. There's a couple jump scares, but those don't count as far as being actually scary. Did
I
you see?
always go through that with games that I've played, like, because
Yeah.
I feel like I can't think of any others off the top of my head, but I feel like this has happened before where I've played a game and then a movie has come out about that game and I've been like, "Oh, yeah," and I get really hyped for it, and then it's never
Yeah.
what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
I
Well,
guess
and I
it happens with urban legends more than games, but still,
know what you're
I
saying though, in general. Yeah, you're expecting. Yeah, I was just expecting it to be really scary, and there were parts of it that I thought, I don't know, looked good, but I think other than that, I think part of the problem is they showed too much of the ghost. I think if
yeah.
they had kept a little bit more of that obscured, or, an arm here, a foot there, versus like the whole thing constantly in your face. Anyway, talking about, oh, you were saying it's a bummer. Like, we're talking about, like, they showed too much in the
Yeah.
movie. You remember what you were going to say?
It is sad because not only is the premise really scary, like, and I think it could have worked really well. I love elevators in horror movies. That's like one
Yeah.
of my favorite things to see. I got really hyped up for Satan's Slave's communion. Um and everyone was like, "Don't do that." Because, like the first one was so like jump scary and I was like, "No, it takes place in a high rise. Like there's going
I
to be
hated the first
elevator
one.
shit."
The first
Give
one
me
was
that
like a jump
elevator
scare
shit.
every like 3 minutes. It was super annoying. I didn't even finish it. I did watch that one though, the communion one.
And it had an elevator. That was so cool. I
And
got
it
so
had a
excited.
really good elevator scene, like, in
It
particular.
did.
Yeah.
And it was
Did
one of
you
the
like
reasons
Devil?
too. Devil's kind of a guilty pleasure of mine. I think it's an
I love that
incredibly
movie.
dumb movie.
It is
Um,
dumb, but it's fun.
like,
It's
but it's
entertaining.
so much fun. And
Yeah.
there's that claustrophobia feeling too, that you
Yes.
only get in elevators. Like it's a
It's
very
true.
specific type of
It
it just
is.
works.
And yeah, and you're talking about also being trapped with a bunch of strangers. And
Yeah.
that adds to, because then you're like, because I don't like people, I don't like everybody that I know, let alone people I don't know. Like, you're just kind of like, ugh. So yeah, no, it is. And then there was one of those Hulu, not After
Oh,
Darks,
down.
whatever they were called. You know what I'm talking about, where the
Yeah.
girl and the guy get stuck in the elevator?
Mhm.
That one was pretty good. That was more like thriller, but I still liked it. Thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, a lot to be done with elevators.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But so I think they missed an opportunity with the elevator game, I guess.
Yeah.
But I mean, it could have been worse also.
100% it could have been worse. Yeah. Yeah. It's very middle ground for me. Like, there were things I liked, there were things I didn't like. All in all, I may revisit it, but I'm not gonna prioritize a rewatch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's
All
fair.
right. Well, I think that's it for this one, right? You good?
Yeah, I
You had
think so.
anything? Yeah. Well, that's it for this episode of Horror Games in Real Life with Kat. The elevator game. If you've played this one or any of them, we want to know.
Yeah,
You should put it in the comments and tell us which ones you've done, especially if
definitely.
you
If
had
you've gotten
anything.
this one to work.
Yeah, especially if you've gotten this one to work or anything creepy has happened. Otherwise, what are we talking? What's our next episode about? What's the one we're doing next?
Our next episode is going to be about 11 miles.
Mhm.
So tune in for that.
Yep.
For some car horror.
Yeah. So yeah, well, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Hope you have a good rest of your week, enjoy your weekend, and we will see you in the next one.
Bye.